Imagine stepping on the scale tomorrow morning. The number is exactly the same as it was 20 years ago. Your doctor tells you your weight looks fine, and you assume your belly fat is under control. You feel relieved. But what if a very different story is unfolding beneath the surface? Modern research suggests that after 50, excess belly fat does not always show up on the bathroom scale. This is the reality of visceral fat, the fat that settles deep around the organs. Millions of adults fall into what researchers call the TOFI trap: thin on the outside, fat on the inside. Their weight appears normal, yet important metabolic changes may already be underway. If you've noticed unexplained fatigue, declining energy, or subtle changes in blood sugar, it may not simply be a matter of getting older. Sometimes the issue begins with a hidden form of insulin resistance developing quietly over time. Today, we're not talking about extreme diets or dramatic weight loss programs. We're exploring how this hidden risk develops, how to recognize its signals, and what science suggests can help reverse the process. To understand this trap, let's look at how the body stores energy. Think of the fat beneath your skin, the kind you can pinch on your arm or thigh, as a neighborhood parking lot. When extra energy arrives, it normally parks there safely. For decades, that system works remarkably well. But as we move through our 50s and 60s, something begins to change. This storage system becomes less flexible. The available spaces become harder to fill. Now imagine extra calories arriving after a holiday dinner, a family celebration, or an ordinary weekend treat. The parking lot is already full. Where does that energy go? It begins spilling into places it was never meant to be. Around the liver, around the pancreas, deep inside the abdomen. Researchers sometimes describe this as an overflow effect. The problem is that nothing about this process is obvious. Your clothes may still fit. Your weight may barely change. Yet the overflow continues. You head to your annual checkup. The nurse checks your blood pressure. Your doctor reviews the numbers. Everything seems reasonably normal. You leave feeling reassured. Many adults over 50 look at a stable weight and assume metabolic disease is someone else's problem. They think the warnings are meant for people struggling with obesity. But that assumption can be misleading. Visceral fat is not simply stored energy. It behaves more like an active biological tissue. It releases substances that continuously communicate with the rest of the body, especially the liver. Over time, this can interfere with cholesterol regulation, raise triglycerides, and make it harder for cells to respond properly to insulin. The effects often appear as small changes rather than dramatic symptoms. Maybe your energy crashes in the middle of the afternoon. Maybe concentrating on a book feels slightly harder than it used to. Maybe you wake up after a full night's sleep and still don't feel fully restored. Most people explain these changes the same way. I'm just getting older. But sometimes the story runs deeper than age alone. The encouraging news is that visceral fat is highly responsive to lifestyle signals. It accumulates through biological processes, and those same processes can often be influenced in the opposite direction. The first step is understanding that not all fat behaves the same way. Researchers at institutions such as the Mayo Clinic have spent years studying a unique type of tissue known as brown fat. Unlike ordinary white fat, which stores energy, brown fat specializes in burning energy to generate heat. You can think of it as part of the body's internal heating system. As we age, brown fat activity tends to decline. The furnace doesn't disappear, but it becomes less active. One simple way to wake it up is through mild cold exposure. Not an ice bath. Not anything extreme. Simply finishing a daily shower with 30 to 60 seconds of cooler water may provide a signal that encourages the body to generate more heat. To do that, the body must increase energy use, and part of that energy can come from stored fat reserves. The second strategy involves movement. For years we've heard that any movement is good movement. And that's true. But when it comes to metabolic health, some forms of exercise appear especially valuable. Researchers often refer to this as Zone 2 training. Think of your mitochondria as tiny engines inside your cells. Their job is to convert fuel into usable energy. As those engines become less efficient over time, the body becomes less effective at using fat as fuel. Zone 2 exercise helps rebuild that capacity. It's the pace of a brisk walk, a steady bike ride, or sustained yard work. Your breathing becomes deeper. Your heart rate rises. Yet you can still carry on a conversation. About 30 minutes of this effort, several times each week, encourages the large muscles of the legs and hips to become more metabolically efficient. Over time, the body becomes better at using fat as a fuel source, both during activity and throughout the rest of the day. Protecting your health after 50 is not about fighting your body. It is not about punishing workouts or exhausting restrictions. It is about recognizing that the rules have changed. The habits that worked at 30 are not always the habits your body needs at 60. When you make small, deliberate adjustments, a cool rinse at the end of a shower, a purposeful walk that challenges your lungs just a little, you are doing more than improving your appearance. You are protecting your liver, supporting your heart, preserving your energy, and investing in the clarity and independence that make later life rewarding. An internal change is not a verdict. It is a message, a reminder that every stage of life asks something new from us. The true measure of health is rarely found on a bathroom scale. It shows up in your energy, your mental sharpness, your confidence, and your freedom to move through the world on your own terms. Because the goal is not simply to add years to life. It is to protect the vitality, dignity, and independence that make those years meaningful. If this conversation brought you value today, consider joining us for future discussions as we continue exploring the science of living well after 50. Thank you for spending this time with me. Stay vibrant, stay wise,